The colossal space station known as Harmony Nexus drifted quietly in the endless void between the stars. It had been constructed by 17 distinct alien civilizations working side by side, a shining emblem of peace and unity across the galaxy. The station's sweeping walls shimmered with a faint sapphire glow, and its countless corridors stretched for miles in every direction. Inside the central docking bay, soft alarms echoed as a small human vessel approached. This was the moment long anticipated. After months of careful preparation and countless transmissions, humanity was finally about to meet the Galactic Council in person. Ambassador Robert Clark stood near his ship's airlock, adjusting his neatly pressed blue uniform one last time. He was a tall figure with silver hair and warm eyes, chosen to represent Earth because of his unmatched years of diplomatic service. Beside him was his assistant, Margaret Thompson, a sharp-minded woman with fiery red hair, holding a tablet brimming with crucial data on the alien species they were scheduled to encounter. "Are you nervous, sir?" she asked softly. Robert gave a calm smile and reached down to stroke the head of the German shepherd sitting loyally at his side. "Not with Max here. He always helps me stay grounded." Max was Robert's service companion, a striking dog with thick black and brown fur and alert dark eyes. Trained from puppyhood, he aided Robert, whose old injury made walking long distances difficult. Max instinctively sensed fatigue or tension, positioning himself to offer balance and support. "Remember," Margaret said, glancing at her tablet, "we'll be facing delegates from 17 different civilizations today. The Council has been preparing for months to welcome Earth into their alliance." What neither Robert nor Margaret realized was that a critical oversight lurked in the information exchange. Earth's scientists had proudly shared knowledge of human culture, achievements, and peaceful aims. They had sent details on plants, harmless creatures, and gentle herbivores like deer and rabbits. Yet somehow no one thought to clarify that humans coexisted daily with powerful predators. The Council's members had evolved along very different paths. Nearly all were plant-eaters, creatures for whom predators meant only terror and death. Others were fragile species that had survived by hiding, not fighting. None of them had ever considered that a sentient race might not only endure predators, but live in harmony with them. Deep within Harmony Nexus, in a chamber alive with glowing displays and flashing indicators, Security Chief Vex High monitored the incoming human craft. He was a tall, slender being with 6 watchful eyes circling his head and elongated arms ending in hands with too many fingers. His species, the Karathi, had sprung from tree-dwelling prey animals. "Always vigilant for danger. The human vessel requests clearance to dock," reported his assistant, a younger Karathi, his voice carrying a nervous trill. "Permission granted," Vex replied. Yet something unusual on the sensor display made him hesitate. "Wait, run a biological scan of the ship's interior." The system, designed to detect potential biological threats, began its sweep. The security scanners began analyzing the life signs aboard the human vessel. 2 humans were quickly confirmed, no surprise there. But then the computers flagged something that made all 6 of Vexy's eyes widen. "Alert! Alert!" the machine intoned in its calm, mechanical voice. "Unidentified predator detected aboard human ship. Biological markers classify as apex predator. Bite strength estimated at over 1,500 newtons. Forward-facing vision for tracking prey. Muscular build optimized for pursuit and capture." Vexy's long hands shook as he studied the results. According to the scan, the humans had brought aboard what could only be described as a perfect hunter. The creature was large enough to bring down most Council species, swift enough to catch any that fled, and powerful enough to shatter bones with a single bite. "Sir, what should we do?" his assistant squeaked, voice breaking with fear. I don't know," Vexy admitted. "Why would the humans travel with such a beast? Is it a weapon, a threat, some veiled warning of their true nature?" Meanwhile, in the Council chamber, a magnificent circular hall where the seats rose in tiers around a central platform, representatives from 17 worlds assembled for the momentous gathering. The air buzzed with anticipation as beings of every shape and form settled into place. Elder Mirai, Head of the gentle Kalani smoothed the flowing robes across her slender frame and checked her translator device. Her people resembled tall, graceful deer with wide, luminous eyes and soft, golden fur. They had built a culture rooted in balance with nature, never touched by war. Today begins a new age in galactic history, she told her young aide, whose ears flicked with excitement. The humans seem a species much like us, peaceful, thoughtful, eager for friendship. Closer to the chamber's core, the insectoid Zenther delegates whispered in quick clicks and hisses. They resembled towering, intelligent ants with glossy black shells and multiple arms that moved in restless precision. Descended from hive insects, their kind prized order and collective safety above all else. Suddenly, Vexi's strained voice echoed through the comm system. "Council members, be advised, the human envoy is arriving. However, scans indicate they are accompanied by a large predator. Their intentions are unclear." The chamber fell into stunned silence. A ripple of cold dread swept across the assembled species. None had ever conceived of an intelligent race willingly traveling beside a predator. The vast doors of the chamber slid open with a soft whoosh. Robert Clark entered with confident steps, his polished boots striking the smooth floor. Margaret Thompson followed at his side, tablet in hand, her eyes wide at the magnificent alien architecture. The chamber itself was enormous, with arching walls that soared high above and radiant lights scattering rainbow colors across every surface. But it was the third member of their delegation who drew every gaze. Max, the German, tablet in hand, Margaret gazed in awe at the breathtaking alien design surrounding them. The chamber was vast, its curved walls soaring upward as if they reached into infinity, glowing with strange radiant lights that scattered rainbow hues across every surface. Yet it wasn't the grand architecture that captured the council's attention. It was the third member of Earth's delegation, Max. The German shepherd strode calmly at Robert's left side, following his training with quiet precision. His thick fur gleamed under the alien illumination, and his sharp, dark eyes studied the chamber with steady intelligence. To Max, this was nothing unusual, simply another day supporting his partner, no different from accompanying him into any other important hall. The alien's reaction was instant and overwhelming. The moment Max crossed the threshold, every being present felt their instincts surge with raw ancestral terror. Eons of evolution screamed one word in their minds: danger. Elder Mirai, the elegant, deer-like leader of the Kalani, felt her knees tremble uncontrollably. Her wide, gentle eyes locked on Max, and her thoughts narrowed to a single realization: predator. Every detail about him ignited her people's primal fear. His forward-facing gaze marked him as a hunter, his powerful build as a relentless pursuer, and his sheer size as a killer of her kind. "By the ancient trees?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. Beside her, her young aide froze stiff with fear. Across the chamber, the insectoid Zenther delegates erupted in high-pitched chittering, their voices rising like an angry swarm. To their compound eyes, Max loomed as an enormous threat, easily capable of crushing their fragile forms. Their antennae twitched frantically, caught between the instincts to flee or hide. At the back of the hall, the morgue, beings of stone and strength, among the least fearful species of the council, let out deep rumbles that echoed in their chest cavities. Even they, who rarely recoiled from anything, recognized the clear outline of a creature bred for violence. Council leader Thane, a tall, blue-skinned humanoid with 4 arms, rose slowly from his central seat. His commanding voice filled the chamber, though it carried an unfamiliar tremor. "Ambassador Clark, we welcome humanity to this assembly. But we must ask, what is the nature of the creature you have brought with you?" Robert glanced down at Max, now sitting obediently in perfect position, exactly as he had been trained whenever his human paused. The dog's tail wagged once, happily, sensing Robert's attention. Looking back up at the chamber, Robert wore a puzzled expression, baffled by their unease. "Oh, you mean Max?" he said with a warm smile. "This is my service dog. He helps me move around when my old injury acts up. He's been with me for 5 years now." The words hit the chamber like a shockwave. A service creature. They were describing this apex predator as a helper. The concept was so alien that many council members questioned whether their translators were malfunctioning. Elder Mirai finally found her voice, though it quavered. "Ambassador, forgive us, but our instruments confirm your companion bears every marker of an apex predator. Muscle density suited for pursuit. Jaw strength capable of shattering bone. Senses designed for tracking and killing prey." Margaret glanced between the trembling council members and Max lay stretched comfortably at Robert's feet, calm and unaware of the tension filling the chamber. Margaret could sense something was deeply wrong, though she couldn't quite grasp what it was. "Well, yes," Robert admitted, still puzzled. "Dogs did descend from wolves originally, but Max here is completely harmless. He wouldn't hurt anyone. Watch this." Reaching into his pocket, Robert pulled out a small red rubber ball. "Max, sit. Stay." The entire chamber recoiled as though Robert had just drawn a weapon. To alien eyes, it looked as if the human was issuing commands to his trained killer, preparing it to strike. Max straightened instantly, ears perked forward, gaze locked on his partner. To the terrified assembly, it was the image of a predator awaiting orders from its master. "Good boy," Robert said warmly, before tossing the ball across the chamber floor. What followed would be retold in council records for generations. Max exploded into motion, springing up with fluid, athletic grace. His muscles rippled beneath his thick coat as he bounded across the polished floor, paws clicking softly with each stride. Every movement radiated predator, swift, powerful, unstoppable. Several Kalani delegates collapsed in fright. The Zenther began releasing emergency pheromones, sharp and metallic, like burning iron. Even some of the stalwart Morgth edged nervously toward the exits. Max reached the ball and clamped it gently in his jaws, just as he had done countless times before. Tail wagging with pure delight, he spun and charged happily back toward Robert, eager for more play. "No, it's attacking!" A panicked voice cried from the upper tiers. "The beast obeys hunting commands," another shouted. Suddenly alarms wailed across the chamber. Crimson lights pulsed from hidden panels, and heavy security barriers began rising from the floor, designed to shield the council from potential danger. Yet Max, blissfully unaware of the chaos he had caused, simply trotted back to Robert and dropped the ball at his feet. He gazed upward expectantly, tail sweeping the floor, waiting for his favorite game to continue. The emergency sirens wailed through the council chamber like the last cry of a collapsing star. Crimson warning lights flared from every wall, throwing jagged shadows that twisted across the once peaceful hall. In moments, the grand chamber of diplomacy had dissolved into panic and confusion. Security Chief HFY stormed into the room with 6 armed guards at his back. Their weapons were drawn but lowered, uncertain what exactly required their protection. HFY's 6 eyes flicked rapidly between the human envoys and the large canine now seated obediently beside Robert, panting lightly from his sprint. "All delegates, move to secure positions," HFY ordered through his comms. "We may be facing a biological threat." Council Leader Thni lifted all 4 of his blue arms high, struggling to impose order on the frightened assembly. His voice, usually calm and steady, now quivered under the weight of tension. "Ambassador Clark, you must explain at once. Did you bring this predator as a weapon? Is this meant to display humanity's military power?" Robert's jaw fell open in disbelief. He glanced down at Max, who had retrieved his ball once more and sat patiently, holding it in his mouth, tail swaying with quiet hope. The notion that anyone could mistake his loyal friend for a weapon was so absurd that Robert nearly laughed aloud. "A weapon? Max is the gentlest soul I've ever known. He's trained to help, not harm," Robert said, his voice cracking with equal parts confusion and frustration. "Look, let me show you how harmless he is." But before he could demonstrate, the situation spiraled out of control. A young Kalani delegate named Kira Han, barely 16 in human terms, had been so terrified by Max's earlier sprint that she dropped her personal translator. The glowing cube tumbled across the floor, skittering until it came to rest nearly 20 feet from where the human stood. Max noticed it at once. Years of service training had conditioned him to pay attention when people dropped important items. His instinct was simple: retrieve and return. Without waiting for any command, Max rose to his feet and padded calmly toward the fallen translator. The reaction was disastrous. To the Council, the sight was unmistakable, a massive predator moving deliberately toward a defenseless child. What Robert saw as helpful, they perceived as hunting. "It's going after the child," Elder Mirai cried, her voice trembling with raw terror. Young Kira turned and saw the dog approaching. A sharp cry escaped her lips, pure panic flooding her deer-like features. Her legs wobbled so badly she could hardly stand, wide, golden eyes brimming with fear. She whimpered softly, the sound only deepening the panic of the other Kalani. "Stop the beast!" shouted one of the Zenther delegates, his insectoid voice buzzing with alarm. Max reached the translator, lowering his head and lifting it gently between his teeth. His jaws closed with practiced care, just as he had been trained with countless objects before. His mouth was soft, precise, never harming the fragile cube he carried. Max had been trained never to damage anything he retrieved. Proud of himself for helping, he turned and began trotting back toward the young Kalani, tail wagging cheerfully. But to every alien eye in the chamber, it was a nightmare image. A predator carrying the remains of its prey, closing in for the final strike. The hall erupted in pure pandemonium. Delegates shrieked and bolted for the exits. The insectoid Zenther launched into the air, circling frantically as their wings filled the chamber with a deafening buzz. The stone-bodied Morgth rumbled so fiercely that the floor itself began to quake. Emergency containment protocols activated. The station's computer announced in its calm, synthetic voice, eerily out of place amid the bedlam. Force fields rose swiftly from the floor, partitioning the chamber into sections. Security guards rushed to encircle the human envoys, but hesitation showed in their movements. Their weapons were designed for hostile alien combatants, not unfamiliar Earth creatures they barely understood. Margaret stepped forward, raising her voice in desperation. "Please listen. The dog is only trying to help. He picked up the translator to return it." But her plea was swallowed by the roar of chaos. Sensing the fear and agitation around him, Max did exactly as he had been trained when people were upset. He pressed close to Robert, sitting firmly at his side, warm body leaning in to provide comfort and reassurance. To the terrified delegates, however, the gesture was unmistakable. They saw a predator closing ranks around its pack leader, adopting a protective stance before striking. The sight only deepened their terror. Young Kira Han was now sobbing, soft, plaintive sounds like a frightened fawn. Her family tried desperately to reach her, but the shimmering walls of the force fields trapped her on the wrong side, alone, cornered with what she believed to be a monster. Max noticed her distress at once. His years of training told him that when a child cried, he should try to help. He had comforted countless humans, many of them children, with quiet gentleness. Without hesitation, Max padded forward slowly, the translator cube still cradled in his careful mouth. "No, stay back," Kira wailed, pressing against the wall, her voice breaking. "It's moving in for the kill!" Someone screamed from across the chamber. At last, Robert understood. They had no concept of a domesticated predator. Everything Max did, every kind gesture, was being read as aggression. "Max, come." Robert called sharply, urgency in his tone, but it was already too late. The situation had unraveled beyond control. It took nearly 2 full hours before the chamber finally quieted. Security teams methodically escorted the terrified delegates to secure areas, working tirelessly to restore order. Protective barriers now divided the chamber like scars across a battlefield. Force fields glowed an eerie blue across the floor while armed guards held their positions at every entrance. At the center of it all, Max lay peacefully, oblivious that he had just triggered the greatest diplomatic crisis in galactic history. The young Kalani delegate, Kira Han, was finally reunited with her family, though she still trembled with fear. The translator cube Max had tried so carefully to return rested on a table nearby, unharmed. Around the chamber, medical teams tended to delegates who had fainted or injured themselves in the chaotic stampede. Council leader Thane stood behind his protective wall, all 4 of his blue arms folded tight, his expression strained as he tried to piece together the disaster. His voice carried through the comm system, measured but sharp. Ambassador Clark, he began slowly. Order has been restored. But this assembly cannot continue until we understand what we have witnessed. Our sensors confirm your companion is a biological predator of the highest order, and yet you insist it is harmless. This contradiction shakes the foundation of what we know of your kind. Robert stood at the center, feeling exposed, his gaze sweeping across countless fearful eyes. Beside him, Margaret's worry was plain. At his feet, Max dozed, snoring softly in blissful ignorance, sounds that somehow only heightened the terror of the watching aliens. I think I see the misunderstanding now, Robert said, his voice echoing across the silent hall. None of you have ever seen anything like Max before. Your species don't have animals like dogs, do you? From her secured position, Elder Mirai answered, her voice trembling though she fought to stay composed. Ambassador, in our worlds, predators kill prey. That is nature's law. The strong devour the weak. There can be no other bond between such creatures. Robert shook his head gently. That's where you're wrong. On Earth, something extraordinary happened, thousands of years ago. Humans and wolves discovered a way to live together. The chamber went utterly still. Only Max's soft snores broke the silence. Even the translators hesitated, as if unsure how to render Robert's words. Margaret stepped forward, her tablet aglow as she pulled up Earth's archives. What the ambassador is describing is called domestication. It's a process that spanned countless generations. Estication? The Zen delegate repeated, his insectoid tone crackling with confusion. Yes, Robert continued steadily. Wolves were once fierce predators hunting in packs. They were dangerous to early humans. But some were different, less aggressive, more curious. Over time, those wolves drew closer, and humans began to feed them, to trust them, slowly, generation by generation. Robert knelt beside Max, running his hand gently through the dog's thick fur. Max opened one lazy eye, blinked at him with unmistakable affection, then drifted back to sleep. That simple exchange sent waves of astonishment through the watching delegates. In return, Robert continued, wolves hunted with us. They warned us of danger. They kept us warm through freezing nights, and slowly, over countless generations, we bred those that were most helpful, most gentle. We turned wolves from wild predators into companions. You changed them? Elder Mirai whispered, her voice filled with disbelief and wonder. We changed each other, Margaret corrected softly. Humans learned to work with animals. Dogs learned to understand us. It became a partnership that let both species survive, even thrive. A Morgth delegate rumbled, his voice like stone grinding on stone. But the instincts? The hunger to hunt. How do you restrain such dangerous drives? Robert only smiled. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small dog treat. At once Max stirred, tail thumping with excitement at the sight of the reward. Max, sit, Robert said gently. The dog obeyed instantly, eyes fixed on Robert with pure devotion. Robert held the treat inches from his nose, and still Max waited, motionless, patient, trusting. The hunting instinct, Robert explained, was replaced by something stronger, the desire to please. Max doesn't find joy in killing. His joy is making me happy. When he picked up that translator, he wasn't hunting prey. He was helping, because that is what fulfills him. He handed Max the treat. The dog took it carefully from Robert's fingers, his teeth never even grazing skin. Then he lay back down, resting his massive head across Robert's boot. This is impossible, breathed the Zentheri delegate, his insectoid wings fluttering with disbelief. You have turned apex predators into servants. Not servants, Robert corrected firmly. Partners, friends, family. Max is not my possession. He's my companion. He chooses to help me because he loves me, and I love him in return. The chamber fell into stunned silence. For most of these species, love existed only within their kind, or occasionally between peaceful herbivores. But love between predator and prey was unimaginable. How many such creatures live on your world? Asked Council Leader Thien at last. Hundreds of millions, Margaret replied, consulting her glowing tablet. And dogs are only one example. Humans have domesticated horses, cats, birds, even reptiles and fish. We coexist with beings that could harm us, but don't, because we've built trust. The chamber hummed with hushed conversations in dozens of alien tongues. Some delegates leaned forward, fascinated by the possibilities. Others shrank back, still unsettled. But all of them knew they had just witnessed something that would forever reshape their understanding of life itself. Max yawned, stretched, then curled up again, as if the galaxy's greatest revelation had been nothing more than a bedtime story. Max drifted deeper into his nap, completely unaware he had just become the most famous dog in galactic history. 6 hours had passed since the first wave of panic in the council chamber. The glowing barriers had been lowered and the flashing crimson lights extinguished. What remained was something no one had foreseen when the assembly began, a transformed understanding of what intelligence could mean across the stars. Now Max lay in the very heart of the great circular chamber, but instead of emptiness around him, he was ringed by a wide circle of alien delegates. They held back at what they considered a safe distance of 10 feet, yet their fear had steadily given way to fascination. Elder Mirai stood closest to the resting dog. Her slender, deer-like legs still quivered faintly, but her wide, gentle eyes were filled not with terror, but with wonder. For 2 hours, she had questioned Robert about the process of domestication, each answer astounding her more than the last. "So you mean to say," she murmured in her melodic voice, "that Max's ancestors once hunted beings like my people, but now he would lay down his life to shield us?" Robert nodded, seated comfortably on the floor beside his companion. "That's right. Dogs have defended human children from wild predators many times, even against foes larger and stronger than themselves. They'll risk their lives to protect their family." A young Zenthori delegate crept closer, his wings buzzing not with alarm but excitement. "And he truly feels love for you?" "Watch this," Margaret said, lifting her communicator. She played a recording from earlier, Robert's voice calling, "Max, come here, boy." The instant the sound echoed through the chamber, Max's ears twitched upright. He lifted his head, scanning until his gaze locked on Robert. Then his whole body shook with joy, tail thumping so hard against the polished floor that the rhythmic drumming filled the vast hall. He whined softly, eyes bright with unmistakable affection. "Incredible," whispered a Morgth delegate, his rocky tone trembling with awe. "On our world, such devotion exists only between parent and child or bonded mates, never between different species." From his raised platform, Council Leader Thane had observed quietly. At last, he descended the steps and walked toward the chamber floor, closer to the humans than any alien had dared. His 4 arms hung loose, his expression thoughtful, not fearful. "Ambassador Clark Fane," Thane said solemnly, "what you have revealed today overturns all we believed about intelligence and survival. If your kind can forge bonds with predators, what does this say about humanity's potential for diplomacy? And for alliance?" Robert thought carefully, then answered, "I think it tells you that humans are capable of trust that goes beyond instinct, that we can transform danger into loyalty and turn fear into friendship. And if we can do that with the fiercest hunters of our own world, imagine what we could build together with yours. That we believe in the power of cooperation over conflict. We've learned that working together makes everyone stronger, even when that partnership seems impossible at first." Margaret rose to her feet and addressed the vast chamber, her voice steady and clear. "We would like to propose something to the Council. Earth holds countless examples of human-animal bonds. Dolphins have rescued drowning swimmers. Horses carry disabled children, helping them walk again. Birds have been trained to guide the blind through crowded streets." A ripple of astonished conversation spread through the delegates. The idea of predator and prey cooperating was already revolutionary, but animals actively helping to heal and protect others went beyond anything they had imagined. From the upper levels, a new voice joined the discussion. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the human xenobiologist who had remained silent during the crisis, finally stepped forward. "We would be honored to arrange cultural exchanges. Perhaps some of your people would visit Earth to witness these partnerships firsthand. And we, in turn, would love to learn about the peaceful bonds your species share with the creatures of your own worlds." To everyone's surprise, Young Kirahan, the Cathani delegate who had earlier cowered in terror, spoke up. Her voice still trembled, but now it carried curiosity as well. Could we meet some of the smaller Earth animals first? Ones that don't have such big teeth? Robert chuckled, a warm sound that seemed to ease the entire room. Of course. We have cats, smaller than Max, but just as affectionate. We have rabbits that many humans keep as companions, and even tiny birds that can learn to mimic human speech. Sensing the shift in atmosphere, Max stood, stretched, and padded to his water bowl provided by the station staff. He bent his head to drink, lapping noisily in a way that somehow felt like the most ordinary, peaceful act in the universe. Elder Mirai watched the dog for a long moment, then made a choice that would be etched into council history. She stepped forward, closing the distance to just 6 feet. Max lifted his head, saw the anxious alien, and wagged his tail, offering her a gentle, trusting look, I believe, Elder Mirai said, her voice steadying with every word, that we have much to learn from humanity. If they can teach apex predators to love instead of kill, perhaps they can also teach us new ways to build bridges among the stars. Council leader Thani lifted his primary speaking arm, calling for silence. I hereby propose that we welcome humanity into the Galactic Council, not only as members but as teachers. Today they have shown us that the impossible can become reality through patience, understanding, and love. The chamber erupted into applause, a chorus of chittering, rumbling, musical notes and buzzing that blended into a symphony of hope. Max's tail thumped harder, sensing the joy around him. After all, bringing people together had always been his greatest gift.